Right now, we're going to welcome in Mike McGarry of the Press of Atlantic City, talk a little high school hoops. Good morning, Mike.
Hey, Sully, how are you this morning?
Josh has it on record that he bets you only have one Diet Coke in you this morning.
Two,
I
actually.
told you you had at
I'm
least
trying
two
to
in
cut
him. He's like, Mike doesn't sound very, very fired up today. He's only got one Diet Coke down.
No, I got two in me, so I'm trying to cut back, though.
Hey, man, you got to be fired up. It's Cal tournament time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the first round started last night, and, kind of form held with the top four girl seeds winning and the top four boy seeds winning. So we should have some great games with the Final Fours. The girls Wednesday night out at St. Augustine, and the boys Thursday night at Absegami. Should really be some great basketball both nights.
Mike, were you surprised at all that Holy Spirit gave so much trouble to St. Augustine?
Not really. I thought that Holy Spirit would make the necessary adjustments, which they did. I think in the first game they got caught up at playing at St. Augustine's pace, playing at a fast tempo, and I think Holy Spirit went into last night's game with the determined to control the tempo, try to keep it as low scoring as possible. And for the most part, I think it worked. I think Holy Spirit at one point had, in talking to Jamie Gillespie a little bit last night after the game, had back-to-back, three-pointers, open three-pointers late in the third quarter when they were up one. Both shots kind of went in and out. If one or if not both of those threes had gone in, it would have been a different game. But I think at the end, I think St. Augustine, especially with Marlon Hargis, 6'7", Charles Solomon, 6'5", the big freshman Matt Delaney off the bench. I think St. Augustine just kind of wears you down with their size, and they were able to do it last night and win by 12, I believe, 54-42.
It was funny, Mike. We talked with Coach Allen after the Battle by the Bay finale, and trying to figure out what was going on with Ray Bethea, and he kind of just said, "Hey, it was time to turn him loose." And man, boy, did he ever! I mean, this kid has just been on fire the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. 41 points last night. And again, what he did last night, which, when he scored 51 points, setting the school record, he did the same thing. 41 points last night, no three-pointer. In today's world, that is just such an anomaly, to see a guy putting up those sort of numbers without taking three-pointers, kind of doing it the old-fashioned way. It's really crazy. And he really dominated inside against Ocean City, as Atlantic City really controlled that game from the second quarter on and was able to win. And now you're looking at Ray Bethea Jr. I think he has 1,506 career points, one more than the great Leonard Hayes of Atlantic City. Bethea is number 4 on Atlantic City's all-time list. I think he's 20 points away from Edgar Allen, who played for the Vikings in the late 60s and who's one of the legendary names in Atlantic City basketball. And then there's Walt Montford, and then there's Lou Rowe. Lou Rowe has about 1,808 career points, so I don't think Bethea can get there, but he could very easily wind up as the school's number 2 leading scorer all time, depending on how many games Atlantic City is able to play out in the Cal tournament and the state tournament. So really, he's putting up some numbers and doing something very special over there in Atlantic City.
And he's always been known as a scorer, throughout most of his high school career, but he's really become much more of a complete basketball player. You see him getting a lot of rebounds and really being able to read the game, like you said, know when to score on the inside, know when to take those three-pointers. It's been cool to see his kind of maturation and transformation as a basketball player.
Yeah, what he reminds me of, and I hate to do this, I hate to compare high school kids to NBA players or great players. So I'm putting this in the reference of just the similar type of game they play and the similar type of score they are. He reminds me of the way he plays, of the way Bernard King played when he was with the New York Knicks, however. And when I mean that, able to score inside, able to hit that, 12 to 10-foot shot, able to get in the lane and score a lot like that. So that's what he's kind of similar like, scoring-wise. Again, you don't want to ever compare a high school kid to an NBA player, but I'm just making the comparison, in playing styles, basically.
Talk with Mike McGarry of the Press of Atlantic City. And, Mike, I was over at Pleasantville last night, and pretty crazy finish there. Pleasantville was up by about 15, 16 points at halftime, but St. Joe really made a nice comeback, and Marcellus Ross had 30, Divine Anderson had 27. So, you kind of knew that was a game that was going to get into the 70s and maybe 80s. And that's kind of the style of both of those teams.
Yeah, both those teams love to get up and down, and that was that was a 4-5 game. Pleasantville the 4 seed, St. Joe the 5 seed. So you figure, hey, that 4-5 game, you got to figure that's going to be the closest game of the night. And both those teams can score in a hurry, and both of those teams have a tendency at times to have to hit cold spots or dry spells. So the fact that game was Pleasantville up by 15 and St. Joe coming storming back, I wasn't really surprised by that because I think that's the type of teams both teams are. They can go 3 minutes without scoring, and then in the next minute they can score 14 points. So that's the type of teams both are, and obviously Pleasantville with a good win, and now Pleasantville kind of a hot team. They beat St. Joe on Monday night. They beat Middle Township Wednesday. They beat St. Joe again on Friday, and they're going to have a Battle by the Bay rematch with Atlantic City in the semifinals, 7 o'clock Thursday night at Absegami. And remember that first game we just talked about, Ray Bethea. He had 46 on Super Bowl Sunday. But Pleasantville hung in that game till, late third quarter, early fourth quarter before Atlantic City pulled away. So we'll see what the rematch brings on Thursday night.
Yeah, it was funny. I was at that game, and there was about 1:10 left, and I think St. Joe had just gone up by 1, and I was thinking to myself, there might be 12 or 15 more points scored in this game in the final minute.
Yeah, I mean, both those teams can score in a hurry, and that's the key there. That's what happened that night. Marcellus Ross, 30 points last night. Divine Anderson, as you said, 27. Both those guys could fill it up and score in a hurry and change momentum in a hurry. So, like I said, the fact that game was, Pleasantville big at halftime and St. Joe coming storming back, no surprise at all there.
I think, Mike, one of the keys for Pleasantville, obviously, next Thursday night is going to be staying out of foul trouble. They kind of ran into that a little bit in the second half. The big guy went out with foul trouble. Jacob Valius had a couple of fouls there, so they kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit with some ticky-tack fouls. Some of them were kind of, I don't know if you'd call that in a tournament game, but, it is what it is, depending on the referee crew you have. But they definitely have to be wary of that going against a team like Atlantic City because you don't want to get too far into your bench when you're going up against a team that has Bethea and Morgan, Derry, and all these other guys. Yeah,
and I think in that game, too, obviously Pleasantville wants to do a better job against Bethea. They obviously don't want them to get 46 again. So obviously that's a big thing there. And I think Pleasantville had some opportunities to hit some open shots in that game, late third quarter, early fourth quarter. They missed some opportunities, missed some layups, missed some open jumpers that would have kept that game closer. This time, obviously, Pleasantville needs those shots to go down if they are to pull off the upset against the top-seeded Vikings.
Mike, turning over to the girls' side real quick. Chalk again, the top 4 seeds advance. What are your thoughts on the girls' side? Obviously, Mainland as the number 1 seed, 23-0. They're going to have their hands full with Atlantic City, though. That's a team that plays really good defense and can score a little bit. It'll be interesting to see if they can match up with all those 6-footers that Mainland has.
Yeah, I think it's a good matchup. I think on the girls' side, the two things that sort of stand out for me, as you mentioned, Atlantic City and the Millville girls get their first ever Cape Atlantic League tournament wins. So they advance to the semifinals for the first time. And I think you've got two great, intriguing matchups Wednesday night at Absegami. I think Atlantic City Mainland, which will be the 7 o'clock game, is an interesting game. I think with Siani Red Howard and her cousin Tahara Howard and Savannah Robertson, I think a lot of teams athletically can't hang with Mainland. I think Atlantic City can. So I think that's an interesting game. A lot of times Mainland, as they did last night with Wildwood Catholic, just overpowers teams, not only with their basketball ability, but they're just so better athletes. They're bigger, stronger, faster. I think Atlantic City, athletically, can match them a little bit. So I think that's interesting. And then I think Alexis Harrison, great game last night for Millville. I think she had 22 points, double-figure rebounds, 7 blocks as they beat Holy Spirit. She goes up against Ocean City, the defending champions. I think that's a great matchup, an intriguing matchup there. Millville versus Cedar Creek, Millville versus Ocean City, rather. So I think, Wednesday night at Absegami, you've got really two good, intriguing girls basketball games that are worth, making the trip out to St. Augustine for.
But Mike, I'd like to be a fly on the wall in Ocean City practices this next coming week. I mean, Baruffi, he seems to me like one of those coaches, like those old football coaches. Run it again, run it again, run it again.
Right.
You know?
Well, they do a great job. They're a great program, obviously the defending champions. And for them to get back into the semifinals with the talent that they graduated from last year's team that won the Cape, won the South Jersey Group 3 title, made it to a state championship. For them to get back with, I believe, 5 new starters or 4 new starters and have the season they did is just a testament to that program. And again, I go back to the offseason. Grace Sacco, great career at Ocean City, graduated last year, dribbled the ball up court, every possession for 4 years. And I remember talking to Paul Baruffi, a couple days after last season ended and said, what are you going to do at point guard? And he had the answer right away. Danielle Donahue, and the junior has stepped in and really done a great job and is a big reason why Ocean City is back in the Final Four and is again, playing big-time basketball at the right time of year. Yeah,
Mickey Baker's the only starter left from last year's squad. And Donahue's an interesting player because not many point guards, especially in girls basketball, are in that 5'9", 5'10" range. So she brings a little bit of a different dynamic to the point guard position. And, they've got some other bigs underneath there in Mickey Baker and Finnegan who can really match up. And you saw them match up well with Mainland. They've played them into overtime twice this year.
Right, and they did a good job against Kylie Watts of Mainland on both occasions. And now they're going to have another challenge for themselves with Alexis Harrison of Millville. And I think that's what you love about the Cape Atlantic League tournament is you want to see what Alexis Harrison can do against Ocean City, and you want to see how Ocean City is going to defend her. So, that's what makes these games great and makes the tournament, great and makes this really, I think, one of the best weeks in high school sports, in the entire high school sports calendar, from Labor Day to, the first weekend in June when it ends. To me, this is one of the best weeks we have.
Good stuff, Mike. Anything we should be looking out for in the semifinals? You got any, back of the notebook nuggets for us?
I just think it's great games. I think it's 4 games. I think it's the games. The top 4 seeds advance. I think you're going to see big crowds, and I think you're going to see games that people want to see. I think people want to see Wildwood Catholic, St. Augustine again on the boys' side. I think people want to see Atlantic City, Pleasantville. I think Atlantic City, Mainland girls is a fascinating game on a lot of levels, and I think I think for Millville to get to the semifinals, I think is a big step for their program and maybe a little bit of a coming out party for them. Not many people remember a couple of years ago, Jason Kessler took over that Millville program. They lost 40, 50 games in a row. I think that was 6-7 years ago. Well, now they're in the Cape Atlantic League semifinals. So, that's the perseverance that he's shown as a coach and they have shown as a program gets rewarded on the big stage Wednesday night.
Mike, great stuff as always. We appreciate it. We'll be talking next Saturday about the Cal Finals as well as some state playoff stuff. So get your Diet Cokes, get your notebook ready. We'll be ready to rock next Saturday at 9 a.m.
Right, absolutely. That wasn't too bad on just a 2 Diet Coke performance. So managed to get through. Thanks a lot, Sully. We'll see you down the road.
At this point, survive in advance this time of year, buddy.
Exactly. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Mike.